for some damn fool reason, I agreed to be involved in a recorded game session this morning, directly after Tabletopless last night. So here I am. So you get a low effort video with a raspy voice with lots of vocal fry, and I get to use my mundane matte mockery image again. So here's a question. Do you remember the Patriot Act? How could anyone vote against that? You're a patriot, aren't you? You care about your country and your people, don't you? We've just been attacked, we must respond, and we need the powers and so on to do so. Only it turned out to be about spying its own citizens and extraordinary rendition and black site prisons and holding people for an unlimited amount of time in Guantanamo. And so it goes, and so it goes, and so it goes. Names, as it turns out, have power, as any gamer knows from games and mythology and folklore. And this seems to be as true of laws and of any idea that anyone presents. It seems to be as true of that as it is of demons. And there are lesser demons that exist as well. Take safety tools, for example. After all, you want everyone to be safe, don't you? And ignore all of those supposedly unintended consequences of introducing these safety tools, or the lack of a case for the necessity of those safety tools in the first place. Anti-harassment policies. After all, you don't want anyone to be harassed, do you? And ignore all that content in the anti-harassment policy that has fuck all to do with harassment or bullying or anything even remotely related, and tells you what you're allowed to display on your stand or what the content of your games is allowed to be. Now, ignore all that. It's an anti-harassment policy, and if you speak against it, you must be for harassment. Or terms of service. There's a nice anodyne term, which sounds a lot more reasonable than private or fiscal censorship, doesn't it? Even though it's left intentionally vague and is applied unevenly to people. The Puppies and Kittens Act of 2022 could advocate for the sterilization of all ginger people, and people would still be aghast that you could possibly protest against puppies and kittens. The safety tools debate in particular rages on, and we should probably call the kind of people who advocate for safety tools. I'm against these things, not because I want people to be unsafe, but because it's not defined by its name and it has little or nothing to do with actual safety. It's to do with the way they're implemented, the atmosphere they create. You are safe at a gaming table. It is a safe environment in which to explore things that you might not otherwise explore, to encounter things that you might otherwise avoid in a completely safe environment. The only way you're unsafe at the gaming table is if someone drops a D4 and you tread on it. That is literally it. There is no place, there is no context in which these tools would be useful. Most of the time you're going to be playing with a home group who you know, who you have an established level of trust with, whose limits and issues you know about. So there's no need for the tools in that context. Where they're most often applied, where they're most often used as convention and store games, where you perhaps have a 4-hour slot in which to fit your game. But if you're handing out questionnaires everywhere to all the other players and then having to read them, that's conservatively, I would estimate that's a half hour of your session gone. Just gone. And then if people's triggers and issues are things that interface with the game that you had prepared, particularly in high prep games like D&D, that's more time to quickly rewrite things or substitute things, and it's a lot of things to remember at the same time. People disingenuously present the idea of these consent forms as oh, well, it's just like saying what the film is about, or a content warning. But content warnings in other media are broad. They're not spoilers. When you look at these consent sheets, they're asking you everything that upsets you, and to what degree it upsets you. And then the Games Master, on top of everything else, is supposed to keep track of all that and change things on the basis of what people have put down on their forms. And even worse, in the cases of X cards, people can just tap them at any point, completely disrupt the game, ruin the fun for 3 to 5 other people. So there's no context in which it makes sense to use them. Well, there are edge cases, there are always edge cases. It's a waste of time, which is often limited when it comes to gaming. The power of veto that the X card provides creates problems for all the other players and the Games Master at the table. Someone who's put a lot of work in to entertaining everyone else. And it creates an atmosphere of censure and tattletaling, of drumming up controversy, apparently just for kicks. People arguing the other side of this debate are either extremely fucking stupid or being disingenuous. It's up to you which you find most insulting. Whichever one you find least insulting, consider that I'm calling you that. They conflate what amounts to a BDSM kink list, with kinks, squicks, hard limits, soft limits, to the mentioning of genre and system. I don't think anyone objects to the idea that a sign-up sheet that says what game it is, maybe an age rating, I don't think anyone objects to that, to genre and system. If you're going to play Vampire the Masquerade, you have an idea of what that game is going to involve, and if you don't like mature themes and gothic horror, then you should stay away. Similarly, if it's some kind of zombie genre game, if you're squicked out by body horror and death and so on, you should probably stay away. You don't need any more warning than that. I don't think anyone's objecting to that. It's these sheets, it's the sheer weight of problems that they create for the Games Master, how disrespectful it is to the Games Master and the other players. It's the waste of time that eats into the time that you have to play, which can often be quite limited. In the case of the X card, it's this veto power that gives any single player over an entire group. Imagine if you went to see a horror film in a cinema, and on the right arm of every chair is a big red button. If you press that button, it cuts the visuals, it cuts the sound, so that you can edit the film on the fly, if you like, for things that you don't like or you find unbearable. Which means that everyone in that room suddenly has the capability to, rather than covering their eyes or burying their head in their partner's shoulder, to ruin the film for absolutely everybody else in the cinema. That doesn't seem like a good way to go about things, does it? It seems arrogant, presumptive, imperious even, to do that to everyone else, to impose your limitations on everybody else, when you could just take responsibility for yourself and cover your eyes. People arguing the other side also, I find this frustrating but funny. They say that these tools are necessary, and they give a couple of examples, and it almost always seems to be the same 2 examples as to why this is necessary, but they actually prove the exact opposite point. The 2 examples they tend to bring up are the UK Games Expo issue, where a Games Master was accused of including gang rape in his scenario and was banned from the convention after a big fuss on social media. I know, shocking. And the other one that they cite is the streamed game Far Verona, which led to the downfall of Adam Coble. Again, this actually shows the exact opposite of what they're arguing for. In the case of the UK Games Expo game, there was no gang rape. I actually investigated this, and I took the trouble to interview and talk with the Games Master involved. I think everyone should have the right to face their accusers. No one else was talking to him, so I had to. Apparently that was something unforgivable, actually trying to get to the bottom of anything, to figure out what actually happened and what the truth was. This was seen as a bad thing, so it would seem. According to these people, the very fact that I talked to him makes me a problematic individual. I investigated, I found the sign-up sheets, I found the game description, I talked to him, I looked at the Twitter feeds of the people involved who were kicking up a fuss, and as it turns out, the entire thing was just their interpretation of events. At no point did they try to remonstrate with him or say, I'm not cool with that. Nothing that a mature adult would do in that situation. No, they went straight onto social media and kicked up a huge stink there, while the GM carried on about his day, oblivious, until he was banned from the convention and any future conventions with that group, with those people, with those organisers, all over a misunderstanding. There was no gang rape. It's all bullshit. But the atmosphere of safety tools and anti-harassment rules that have nothing to do with anti-harassment, that atmosphere enabled their behaviour. They had to be taken seriously, apparently with no investigation whatsoever. The sign-up sheet said it was horror. It even explained what kind of horror it was, which was a sort of mashup between Hostel and the In-Betweeners. There was no reason for any of this to happen. The Games Master did nothing wrong. But the atmosphere that these tools, these ideas create, punished an innocent man. When it comes to Far Verona, and let me be clear, I think Adam Coble is a bellend. When it comes to Far Verona, he was using safety tools. They'd had a session 0. They'd talked things through about the game and its themes and everything else, and they had an X card behind the scenes which anyone could have tapped at any point. If you watch the stream, you can see him checking in constantly at each stage of the robot seduction that was occurring, and nobody seemed to leave the game with any real problem, though they were reacting with shock during the scene, but that could have been in character as much as out of character. It was only afterwards that there was a fuss. And if you cite this as a reason for using safety tools, and safety tools were used and didn't help, it doesn't make the point that you think you're making, I don't think. They say that these rules are not being imposed, that we can ignore them if we don't want to use them, but that's simply not the case. Conventions increasingly enforce these rules, stores increasingly enforce these rules. There is apparently no space for mature themes or artistic content anymore in gaming, and in my opinion we're all the poorer for it. So it's not true that we can just do what we want, regardless. And increasingly we see these tools being promoted and used in books, even when it completely undermines the entire theme and point of the book. You can look to the most recent Ravenloft for that. It wants to create a horror atmosphere, but then it takes away all the tools that you have to create horror or disgust or unease, because that might trigger somebody, which is kind of the fucking point of horror if you really think about it. It's to make you scared, it's to make you uneasy, it's to horrify you, hence the name horror. So then they retreat from that to the old familiar position of they're a private business and they can do what they want, which kind of exposes them, which is a useful thing to do, I suppose. But increasingly this is part of the culture, but it's not really part of the culture, it's astroturfing. It's forcing people to regard these things in a certain way. It's almost like how, back in the day, everyone put a disclaimer in the front of their book because of the satanic panic, telling people that magic isn't real. You should see a psychiatrist if you couldn't tell the difference between reality and fantasy. Only that's been reversed now. We're supposed to expect that people can't tell the difference between reality and fantasy, but this is far from the only comparison that can be drawn to the satanic panic. Moral panics tend to be of a type, I suppose. The difference is we're taking it seriously, more seriously than we should, and harming ourselves in our desperation to please people who will never be pleased. It's not a good way to go about things. And we've all been here before, at least the older ones amongst us. Safety tools aren't about safety. They don't do anything useful. Trigger warnings are shown in study after study after study to have either no effect whatsoever or a negative effect by reinforcing pathologies through avoidance of anything that might possibly ever upset you, which just entrenches those pathologies. Whereas encountering them in a safe environment, such as, a game table where everything is imaginary and nothing can hurt you, that's actually helpful. That's therapeutic. It doesn't make the game safer, it doesn't work, it creates problems for the GM, it ruins the fun of other people, and perhaps most importantly, it doesn't help the very people they like to say that this is meant to help. And just to end on a note, I have mental health issues. I'm disabled. Somehow those qualities in me don't matter. They only matter in the people who claim to want to censor and control what other people do at their tables. Odd that, isn't it?